Bitcoin has seen its biggest intra-week down move ever, falling over $18,000 so far this week. Currently, it's on a bit of a bounce from that low back up to around about 84,000 from going all the way down to around 78,000 this morning. I really just want to put out this video to ask the question of, should you buy crypto here? Is this a big discount? There's a lot of influencers talking about deploying big money, big capital into Bitcoin here, putting in $1 million into the markets this week, making DCA purchases on Bitcoin, on the majors like Ethereum, Solana. Surely these cryptos are the future. These cryptocurrencies are here to stay, right? So you buy when it's red. You buy when the price goes down. You don't chase the price up. So I really want to ask that question. Is crypto a good buy in 2025? Let's actually try and look at the data and see if we can answer that together. And then we can make a conclusion as to, do you buy today? Do you buy next month or next, over the next few months or the next few weeks? Do you take a DCA approach? Is that the right way to go? Or should you actually walk away and say, look, I'm going to sort of check out of the market for a bit of time, and actually put your money into other things that are better investments, to better places to put your money into other than crypto right now? I'm actually going to try and answer that question on this video. So let's take a quick look at Bitcoin then. And obviously we can see here, you can see like it's nearly done a 19% drop. Obviously there is a bounce today, but the week is not yet over. We can still go lower. And a lot of people have started to criticize me for turning bearish. I know my last video, I got a few, not so nice comments. Look, I mean, I welcome all feedback and criticism, whether that's positive, whether that's negative. I think everybody should be able to put their point across. Everybody has sort of should have freedom of speech, be able to speak their mind and, give their views on a situation or subject. So I have no problem. If you don't like my videos, you can downvote, you can criticize me in the comments. That's absolutely fine. I'm thick-skinned enough to not let that sort of thing get to me. But obviously, I have been in this space for a long time now. I actually got in 2018, so we're now, looking at the last 7 years that I've been very, very actively trading cryptocurrency, investing cryptocurrency, putting my money where my mouth is. And, if we just look at sort of where the market has gone since I got involved, obviously this is going way back, way, way, way back to 2018. Obviously, Bitcoin made the top. Bitcoin and crypto really got put on my radar here. And then I observed the price go on this really sort of nasty downturn. And I remember price was at around $20,000. And when it got down to 10,000, I said, look, that's a 50% discount. I said, if this ever comes back, ever goes up again in the future, then it could be worth investigating, looking into. And I did my research, I did my homework. I bought some cryptocurrencies such as XRP that I lost a lot of money on because I got in at the worst possible time, around about $2. It proceeded then to dump. I think it went under 15 cents at its lows. So, I bought all the wrong tokens at the wrong time, as many people do. And as, many of my followers and viewers might have also done. And I've got experience in this, so I've managed to turn it around. I managed to make a lot of money through the next cycle, which was this sort of 2020, 2021 cycle. And from there, I've sort of seen the full cycle experience, and then I've taken what I learned from the last cycle, applied it to this cycle. And just for full transparency, I am currently out the market right now. I've sold all of my cryptocurrency apart from a bit of spot Bitcoin. So obviously, when I got involved, we looked like we found a low around this $6,000 level, and what we ended up doing is we ended up sort of just making these lower highs whilst making equal lows. This is known as a triangle, a descending triangle, and these have a high probability of breaking out to the downside. And of course, eventually broke out to the downside, came down to the 200-week moving average, At this point, very, very little people were buying Bitcoin. Everybody was thinking, no, it's all over. Don't buy it. It's going down to, 2,000. It's going down to 1,000. I think Tone Vays, there was memes going around about the legendary, infamous Tone Vays calling Bitcoin down to $1,800, and no regrets, was bullish. Yeah, it was a very, very difficult period to navigate. Even though in hindsight it looks just, so easy, just buying at this 200-week moving average. And of course, at this time, people were thinking like, is this stuff going to get banned? There were no ETFs, there were no institutions, there was no Michael Saylor. It was a time where people were, literally looking at these markets and sort of saying, look, I remember getting messages from people saying, look, yeah, you shouldn't buy this. It's probably going back down to $100. So, but obviously it held up, and the rest is a formality. It's kind of history in a way, and there we go, onwards and upwards from there. I'm going to remove some of these messy trend lines, but anyways, so we can kind of sort of see what's been going on since then. Obviously, we had a big bull run, and then we corrected, and this was quite painful for me because I didn't see any reason for this correction, for this crash. And obviously, we went on Bitcoin all the way down like 77%. So that's pretty much an 80%, let's round it up, 80% drawdown in Bitcoin. And this is after Michael Saylor came in. This is after institutions were starting to get interested. So obviously, if you kind of fast forward to this bull run, and we've seen a really, really nice run here. I mean, if you bought that 80% low, then you're literally up nearly 600%. So you're up basically a 7x, which is really, really impressive for an asset like Bitcoin, right? I mean, to get like a 6 to 7x out of any investment is amazing. So yeah, it's been a good run, and obviously what we've seen up here is clear distribution. So there's been heavy, heavy selling, really heavy selling above 100,000, and the market's then broken through this trend line, and this trend line was connecting these highs from the last bull run to was just connecting those highs. And obviously we've come in, we've interacted with it, we've clearly interacted with it because we're holding it as support. And as soon as we lost this on a daily close, which was on Monday night, I said it's time to get out because we're at the risk of starting to make an aggressive move to the downside. And that's exactly what has happened. And it's funny because I did de-risk in this range, and I then got back in when we held when we continued to hold these lows. And I was expecting a bit more upside, but sometimes you just have to cut your losses, and that in hindsight was absolutely the right thing to do. So the question is, like I said at the start of the video, is crypto a good buy today? Like, where do we go from here? So there's a lot of people talking about this is just a sweep, and it's a trap, and a lot of influencers and KOLs are saying, look, this is when you buy Bitcoin, you don't panic, you don't sort of panic sell. Like Bitcoin's like a 28% correction, like that's a really, really good time to buy Bitcoin, right? It's like if we look at this correction here, this is basically a 33% correction, so we might come down a little bit lower. I mean, if we did a 33% correction here, then you can see we're basically coming in and we are retesting the highs from last year, which would be a nice back test. Obviously, when you sort of break through resistance and come back down and retest it, the first retest, it's usually strong support. So that looks like a great setup. And make no mistake about it. If I pull up these other charts here, I've got some paths that I've drawn on those, and if this wants to load up, then yeah, we might come down, we might sort of find support here, and we could start to make our way higher over the rest of the year. And if we we're unable to break to new lows and start to like sort of gradually sort of grind up, then potentially we could go into a higher high later on in the year. That is, for me, the most optimistic path. I've got another path which I've drawn on this chart, which is a little bit more aggressive. So this would really be if we get a very sort of quick recovery in the stock market, then potentially Bitcoin recovers sooner and we get this sort of move back up sort of pre-summer. The problem with this is I'm not too sure whether this is actually enough time for this damage to be repaired. And I don't believe that this actually is going to give the market a full reset that it really, really needs. So I could potentially see us coming back up and retesting this high, but probably fading there. And then from there, sort of selling off. So I guess, it's a question of what is it? Do we come down here? And obviously, I believe we're going to bounce. So we probably, retest this low a couple of times, and then we start to push higher. And the question then becomes, do we reject this level or do we actually go through it? And what's the upside here? Like, are we just going to, blast straight up to $1 million per coin? Probably not. I would think that we might sort of come up here and make another high. But if we're looking at this, in terms of a percentage gain from here up to here, we're looking at about 20%. I mean, what I'm trying to say is the majority of this move, the majority of these gains have been had this cycle. Okay. The best gains have already been had. So you're now getting into a market that has significantly more risk than it has upside, because now you're saying if we do go higher, I'm going to make 18%. However, if we actually go lower, then where do we come down to? Do we come down here? Okay, that would be our 200 week moving average that we held in the past, and potentially we see institutions start to step in there. Obviously, this takes us back towards the lows from last year, so that would be a 50% cut on the price of Bitcoin, which I think personally, within more institutions actually being in the cryptocurrency space, that could actually be an area that we do bottom out, that people do look to start to accumulate Bitcoin. And I think around $50,000 per Bitcoin, based on the fact we've been above 100,000 already, I think long term that's probably a decent entry. The problem is we might not stop there. We might go lower. We could come all the way down to 30,000. Like, I mean, this is really the next level that we've got support. We've got support from the low from 2021. We've got support from the highs from 2023. So there's really, really nice horizontal support down here. And let's just try and mark this out. So I personally think that would be the level that I'd get interested in, and potentially we come down lower into the 20s as well. But if we just look at what that would be in terms of a drawdown from here, then, or sorry, from the high, that would be your 70%. Obviously, last bear market, we did a bit more than that. We did closer to 80%. So that gets you under that level. But, maybe diminishing returns to the upside, less volatility both ways. Potentially we just come down to around the 30 level and look to bottom out there. So the issue with this is you're therefore making or risking a 65% drawdown to make 18-20% of upside. It's not great odds, is it? It's not a great risk to return profile. And of course, you wouldn't have your invalidation for that position there. You'd probably have it here. So what you're looking really to do is you'd be looking to buy this support around this 75,000 if we get there. And I think we will. I think we'll sweep this low, by the way. And then you're saying, right, I'm going to make about 50% to the upside. But if we lose this level, then I'm only going to risk, say, 10%. So you've got a 5-to-1 risk to reward. And that's an area that I'd be interested in trading. So going back to the question, should you be buying crypto this year? I think depending on your entry, if you can get in close to 75,000 in the low 70s, I think the risk return targeting a move to new all-time highs at the end of this year is quite good. Usually markets like to top in Q4 of the year. So if we look at all the significant tops in the stock market, for example, they always tend to fall in Q4. The vast majority of them do. So I think it's something crazy like 80% or so do. So yeah, I would expect this year to probably be the same thing. But and potentially the dollar coming down is the catalyst for that, right? Because we need to look at catalysts. We can't just blindly say, oh, this might happen, that might happen. We need to be fully aware of the catalyst because Bitcoin is now behaving as a macro asset. Okay, so it's no longer just in its own bubble in crypto land and based off the halving cycles. It's now correlated to the S&P, correlated to the Nasdaq. It's behaving like a risk on macro asset. Okay, so we will explore those factors in a moment, but certainly as things stand, obviously there's two ways I see this going, and this is probably an area you want to de-risk if we come back in and we test this trend line. So I would say accumulate below 75K in validation, probably below 66, 65, sort of starting to come sort of below this high. Then you start to get worried. Could there be some sort of flush like this? Yes, there could be. Maybe you want to wait to ensure that price action is constructive around here. And look, I think if this flush does happen, then the way you manage risk is you get out when this level breaks, and then once it actually reclaims, then you can go long again. But I think broadly speaking, long term, I prefer to accumulate Bitcoin lower. I think below 50K is a good entry. Like I say, you're accumulating at a 50% discount from the all-time high of this cycle. So I would say really down in this zone between 30 and 50K, that is where you really want to start accumulating. We got some support. Remember this level very well from the last bear market. So around about sort of 48,000. So, these are probably levels that you want to start to DCA in over the next year or two. But patience is everything. Patience really, really is the key here. And right now I'm not so interested in accumulating here until we come down to more significant support. That's really, really what this is about. It's about, Bitcoin sort of finding some significant support here. And right now, it's not at significant support. It's just really in no man's land. These levels here are sort of very minor support. And I'd actually be looking at Bitcoin if we do rally to come into one of these levels and probably reject and actually put on a bit of a short trade. I mean, if we did do something like this, then I look to sort of play that as a short. So, but if you're long term, if you're more of a passive investor, I don't think there is any reason to rush in and buy here. And obviously, this goes completely against what other crypto influencers are saying. I totally get that. I mean, I know it's an unpopular opinion right now to be bearish, but you kind of think you look at this and you say to yourself, we're either in two places. We're either here, so we're either somewhere like here, okay, in which case, yeah, over the next couple of months you want to DCA in because we'll get a push higher later on in the year, or we are somewhere like here. And of course, if we're here, it's a buy, quite clearly. And in a few months, you're going to be up on your investment. If you're here, then you're going to have to wait. How long was this? From January 2022 to pretty much January 2024. You're going to have to wait 2 years just to get break even. And remember, this is happening a year early, based on the 4 year cycle. So maybe that 2 years becomes 3 years because we get some sort of prolonged bear market and we get some sort of prolonged reset. So, if you got in here, you'd have to endure that, 65%, 66% drawdown. And of course, you'd want to make sure you had a decent level of income or a decent amount of cash still reserved to be able to buy in and DCA. I mean, if you can DCA over like a sort of 2 to 3 year time horizon, then by the time you get here, you're going to be in good profits because you're going to have reduced your average. So this is why I think it's probably better to wait for something like this to happen And that's where you want to accumulate heavily. And if you're going to take on a trade here, or even if you're here, if you had a clear invalidation to get out, once, say, for example, I'm trying to think, if you're playing this chart, you would probably have been looking at this level as your initial support. Obviously, you lost that, and then you would have been probably coming down to this low. But even that then starts to look bearish when you couldn't actually establish prices above there. So maybe you would have actually got in here if you've been really patient, down at this 100-week moving average, and then maybe you would have said, right, I'm going to hold this and see if we can get back up to a new all-time high. And when we started to reject off the 50-week and come back down, then you would have had to get out. So I think if you are, this is why I say, if you are getting in to the market here, like in terms of where we are today, then you just want to be patient and you want to have a clear invalidation because, if we do then start to come down, so let's say, for example, we do something like this and we come down and we grind a bit and people are starting to say, oh, is it over? And then we start to sort of pump up and maybe we get up something like here and then come off. You obviously want to make sure that as soon as we take out these lows, you're exiting the market because you're not going to want to hold this from these lows here down another, 30%. You're going to want to protect your capital. So you have to, you have to be a bit more active. Obviously, I'm going to be making videos every couple of days about these markets. So I will keep you informed, exactly telling you what I'm doing. If I'm entering the market here, I'll tell you I'm entering the market here. If I'm, taking some off the table, if we get a bounce, then I'll take some off the table. Maybe this bounce goes a bit higher. The market likes to usually sort of retrace 50%. So maybe we see something like that. We come down, bottom out just below 70,000. I think that would shake a lot of people out. 50% retrace, start to de-risk, comes off, get out the full position when this gets taken out. And, if it's clear that becomes a lower high, then you want to be out the market. And of course, maybe you get bounces into this trend line, but this could be going into 2026. It could be 2027 by the time we actually recover out of this if we want to trade sideways. But anything down here, be a fantastic buying opportunity to accumulate over 2026, 2027, and then there'll be probably a new cycle with new narratives. I think the fact that we've now got pro crypto legislation coming in is going to open up the door for more narratives and more investment to actually come into the space. Potentially, you get pension funds, endowment funds starting to get involved. Obviously, BlackRock are going to keep on pushing their ETF. It's going to be hard to sell ETFs when the price is down here, but when it starts to recover, I'm sure there'll be narratives. You'll probably get banks that start to allow you to have a Bitcoin account, a crypto account that you can manage from your phone. You can, probably have a savings account in Bitcoin. There'll be all sorts of structured products as well, where you manage to get some sort of limited upside from Bitcoin, but your initial capital gets protected. So yeah, the space is still in its infancy. It's still very early, and I do think over the long run, Bitcoin probably does replace gold as the first class, the premium, the store of value of choice for the world's reserves. But that will take time. That will take a long time, and potentially we need to cool off and correct over the next couple of years to actually see things play out. So, that was really it on Bitcoin, and that is why. Well, I'll give you the final answer to the question at the end, but you can see the dollar, and I think one thing we do have going for us is that the dollar looks like it's trying to put some highs in here. So potentially we do come back up and chop a little bit here. I don't think it'll be straight down, but I'm thinking over the next year we probably come down to these levels and maybe we even go a little bit lower before getting a big bounce. So that would support another rally in crypto later on this year. So that would be good. That would obviously support something like this path playing out here. So we might see something like that if the dollar does really start to come down. And it feels to me like in terms of the macro picture, like, Trump is almost trying to, in a way, sort of break things a bit. So then he can fix them. And it's only when things break that the Fed are actually going to cut interest rates, and I think Trump knows that as well. So I think that's why he's going like all out on these like tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. Let's get the stock market down. Let's put people through a little bit of pain, and let's try and break things to an extent. So then the Fed come out and say, "Oh, it's like getting rid of all these federal jobs. If these federal layoffs start to filter through into the economic data. There's less income, there's less jobs, and potentially economy starts to slow down. There's less free money, less easy money. Federal Reserve has to cut rates. Then I'm absolutely sure that in a year or two's time, when they're getting the books a little bit more balanced, shall we say, and they've made a lot of these cuts, we'll start to see spending accelerate, and we'll go into a huge bull run for the stock market, for cryptocurrencies, and everything. But it might just take a few months, or even a year, or even a couple of years for that to play out. So we just need to be very mindful of that. And potentially this sort of drags on. We sort of chop around here, we go a little bit higher, and we come down, later next year. And maybe we see, crypto struggle this year and actually do a lot better next year. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, I've talked about the stock market. I've said the stock market here is looking fairly weak. So the S&P starting to lose one of its trend lines. We still have another longer term trend line in play. So what I'm really like, I mean, it has whipped through that. Obviously, a nice bounce today, a nice reversal for this week on the S&P, especially to reclaim some of its moving averages, and we've got these green bands here. But it's come down into my first target. Do we go lower? We might do. But if we actually see where we've come down to, it's only really come in to this longer term trend line. So, we've got a little bit more space to go to hit that, and potentially we do hit that. But I mean, this for the S&P is just really consolidation. We're coming back down to the range. I mean, until this actually breaks, I mean, that's not even a 5.5% move. It's not looking too bad. That's what I'm trying to say. And potentially we do break down through this trend line. We test that's the 50-week moving average. So, it's been quite a while since we've tested that. We last tested that 2 years ago, back in 2023. So, we're well overdue a bit more of a correction in the stock market. And look, if we did come down and we did test that moving average, then that's still only going to be an 8% drop. So, yeah, I'm sure that would scare a lot of people out. And maybe, if the tariff talk rages on, maybe that is the way that the stock market goes. The Nasdaq as well, I think, has a bit more down left in it. Probably comes down to its 50-week moving average. For now, it's just about holding out on support. We've got this trend line in play here that's wicked into these highs from the summer last year. So I think these are probably good areas already to start to DCA these things. I don't see a full-on collapse for now. I expect a wobble. And of course, if stocks do recover and rebound, then it is likely that Bitcoin could turn around. And as we've said, we have this path here. And I prefer the, slightly more, what's this one? This is the more aggressive path. I don't think the recovery will be that aggressive. I think there's more of a reset that is needed. I think it would more likely be this path here, this sort of slower path where stocks get back to all-time highs, in sort of May, June. Bitcoin is struggling. We're sort of starting to grind through those summer months, and then we see some expansion into the end of the year and potentially a top coming in there. So, but like I say, that is one scenario. The other scenario is we struggle to get higher and we come back off. So right now it's unclear. But again, looking at sort of longer term, in terms of generational buying opportunity, I would much rather be accumulating at lower prices down here if we see something like this. And obviously, if we do make a high, let's say, for example, we do come up and we do make a high at the end of this year, I still think over the following months, you will see something like this happen. And, you know, in that case, this is going to have to be a, more of a trade than a long-term hold. If you accumulate crypto this year, you really want to make sure you get out later on this year, especially if there's some signs of weakness coming into the charts. So, yeah, I think in terms of longer term, it's not the right time to put serious capital into Bitcoin or crypto. And of course, the entire market follows what Bitcoin does. So Bitcoin is going to do something like this. I can guarantee you every single cryptocurrency will do not only something like this, but it will likely do something like that. It will underperform. These cryptos always underperform Bitcoin in bear markets. So you don't want to bag hold any cryptocurrency, to be honest with you, for the long term. We can take a really good quick look at Ethereum. Is Ethereum a better buy? Look, I think nothing really changes from our path here. I think if we come down below 2000 to 1800, then potentially, the first scenario I looked at where Bitcoin has another leg in it higher this year, if that potentially plays out, then you can have a nice trade on Ethereum and you can get, a better return, potentially a 2x out of Ethereum if it runs back to 4000. Solana, probably similar if Bitcoin can grind it out in the low 70s. Solana can probably do a similar thing just above $100 and potentially you can run it back up above $200. So again, you've got yourself a nice 2x. But again, you have to be mindful of if this market starts to lose major supports here, then you could be going a lot lower and you could be seeing, a 60-70% drop. I mean, if Bitcoin is going to do 60-70% drop or maybe a further, 50% from its current levels, you best believe Solana can do an even bigger drop from current levels. So we could be coming down to, $20-30. That's not trying to scare people. It's just, realistically, this is when you want to buy. You want to buy these things when, prices are down here, right at the bottom of these charts. You don't want to be buying up in these zones. I mean, if anything, you can make this really, really simple, and you can say that, when price is here, you buy, and when prices are up here, you sell. Because a lot of these are just going to oscillate. So, congratulations to anybody that sold above Solana above, $230, $210. I sold most of mine around 200, which still from, entries I was getting around $20 was a 10x. So that's where you get the real money. That's where you make those life-changing returns. That's when you can turn your, a 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 investment into, 50, 100, 200,000. That's this is when you want to be interested, when nobody else is talking about it, when nobody else is interested. Right now, if you look at the markets when they're down here, they are completely de-risked. There is not too much further they can go down. Everybody that wanted to sell has now sold. And the only way they can really go from here is up, assuming, crypto survives as an industry. So the risk return of buying down here is, just like massively magnified, is massively better than the risk return of buying when you're here or here or here or any point when prices are in the sort of like the top half of this chart. So yeah, just kind of going back to it then, I think this probably plays out one of two ways. Just to recap. So before you buy crypto this year, bear in mind that the risks are that Bitcoin and the rest of cryptocurrencies can fall another, 50, 60% over the next year. You could get upside, but your upside is probably limited. So, 40, 50% on the upside. So at best, you're getting a coin flip, you're getting a sort of one for one, risk one to make one return. That's probably not much better than some stocks, to be honest with you. So the appeal from a speculation perspective, and most people in this market are here because they're speculating. They want to trade crypto to make money. They're not really in it for the tech, which has always been a meme. But you got to remember that if, if the gains aren't really there to be had this year, if most people have made, the bulk of their gains and have exited the market, who's actually going to be coming in when prices are up here and sort of top blasting this thing and bidding this thing with serious size, expecting it to just go up and up and up forever? But I don't think many people are, and that's why I have my doubts about this, further extension happening. Most people are going to be looking to take profits here that know anything about crypto. So actually, has this already been front run and have everybody already taken their profits that understands that, in the final year of the bull run, prices at some point this year will top. Why risk leaving your capital in the market when you're unsure of whether a cycle top is in or not? And for that reason, to answer the question, should you buy crypto this year? It depends on you, it depends on your risk profile. Are you happy to risk, a large drawdown to make a bit of money in crypto this year? Or actually, are you more of a view that if you're, patient, maybe invest your money into something else? I think, like I say, I think the stock market will bounce back. It's not going to give you crypto size gains, unfortunately. You might get 10, you might get 15, you might get 20%. If you go into certain stocks, you might do a bit better. But you're probably not going to take on the same downside risk as you will in buying Bitcoin and crypto. Okay. When prices come a lot lower, and whether that's this year, whether that's next year, but when prices come down, when Bitcoin goes under 50,000 again, which I think I'm almost certain at some point over the next couple of years it will. This is the time you can accumulate Bitcoin heavily. You can, go back into your favorite altcoins if they are, showing signs of reaccumulation and going sideways, as opposed to just totally nuking. And to be honest with you, that's what I'm doing with the majority of my portfolio. I still have a bit of spot Bitcoin. I'm going to be trading this market. If Bitcoin comes down here, I'll probably look to take on a couple of leverage longs with a tight invalidation, looking to run the move back higher. If that move fails, I'll be getting out with what, little profit I can take out this market for the rest of this year, and just waiting, just waiting and being patient for much lower prices to reaccumulate. And I'm going to still be here. I'm going to still be making videos. The problem is most of you probably won't be watching me in a couple of years, and you probably have no interest in crypto anymore, because that is usually how it works. Nobody wants to buy when the price is down here. It's like why? Like things are just dead, but they come back. Bitcoin comes back. So yeah, I'm like I say, I've not trying to scare anybody. I'll probably get some very negative comments on this outlook, on this opinion, but it's my honest opinion that this year, I'm not sure whether cryptocurrency and Bitcoin as an investment is worth the risk. I might be made to eat my words, and you can all come back and say, look, I told you so. I mean, I'm going to show you, I'm going to share one more thing with you before I go. But if we look at, the fan favorite here, XRP, I mean, XRP for me, it has to come back to its November levels at 50. It's going to be around about 50 cents. So, what do you want to buy XRP here? Is it really going to do this? I don't think so. I think best case scenario, you're probably going to move up to maybe here back up to around 2.7, 2.8. That's a 30% gain, but you're risking about 75% on the downside if the cycle top is in. So again, you want to accumulate if you like XRP, if you love it, if you want to keep in buying it here, then I would say just be patient, just wait, because you're probably going to be able to buy it under $1 again, almost definitely buy it under $1 again, probably under 80 cents, probably under 60 cents. It's probably coming back down to 50 cents, people. So, just protect your capital. Because if you take a 70% loss, you're going to have 70% less XRP compared to if you've been patient and if you waited. So, you know, I'm not saying don't buy the token or don't invest in the token. I'm not trying to bash your XRP bags. I'm just saying if you like it and you want to own more of it, then wait until the price is lower to accumulate it more heavily. So hopefully I've got my point across well. I'm going to leave it there. Just trying to be completely honest and realistic with how I'm seeing this market from somebody that's been in these markets a long, long time. And yeah, obviously let me know what you think in the comments. Do you have a different view? Am I completely wrong? Obviously, I've been pretty vocal about reasons why I'm bearish, the issues about liquidity, the issues about interest rates not coming down quick enough, the issues about inflation being high, which is going to tie the hands of the Fed when it comes to they're not going to be able to get away from QT too quickly. They're not going to be able to drop rates too quickly. So, I'm very, very vocal about these issues that I think are relevant to crypto. Like I say, it is more of a macro-driven asset now. It's less influenced by rumors about ETFs or strategic reserves. That was kind of like the whole like catalyst for this big pump, and that's over now. So we need a new catalyst. And for me, the market needs a reset. And whether it's going to get a reset from a few months chopping throughout the summer down at around sort of 69, 70K, or whether it needs to actually come much, much lower and a lot more time, i.e., maybe a year of chopping around at much lower prices to reset. Time will tell. Okay. Have an amazing evening, day, morning, wherever you are, and I'll talk to you all again on the next one.